The diplomatic space station hummed with nervous energy as Commander Zara Chen adjusted her formal military uniform one final time. At 28, she had never imagined she would be chosen to represent humanity in the most important negotiations in galactic history. The Vorthakian Empire had reached out across the stars, offering an alliance that could change everything for her species. Zara's hands trembled slightly as she walked through the pristine corridors toward the meeting chamber. 3 years of preparation had led to this moment. The fate of two civilizations rested on the success of these talks, and she felt the weight of every human soul depending on her diplomatic skills. The chamber doors slid open with a soft whisper, revealing a space that took her breath away. Crystalline walls reflected starlight from a dozen different suns, creating an ethereal glow that made everything seem dreamlike. But it was the figure standing at the center of the room that made her heart stop completely. Prince Kale Vorthak was nothing like the intelligence reports had described. Where she had expected a cold, reptilian creature, she found instead a being of impossible beauty. His skin held a subtle luminescence that seemed to pulse with his heartbeat, and his eyes were the deepest violet she had ever seen, like twin galaxies swirling with ancient wisdom. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, his muscular frame draped in flowing robes that seemed to move with a life of their own. When their eyes met across the chamber, Zara felt something shift inside her chest. It was as if the universe itself had tilted on its axis, rearranging everything she thought she knew about attraction and desire. "Commander Chen," Kale said, his voice, a rich baritone that sent shivers down her spine. "Welcome to Nexus Station. I have been eagerly awaiting this meeting, Your Highness," Zara replied, proud that her voice remained steady despite the chaos in her heart. "The honor is mine. Humanity is grateful for this opportunity." As they moved to the negotiation table, Kale gestured for her to sit beside him rather than across from him. "I believe cooperation begins with proximity," he explained, his eyes never leaving her face. "May I say that you are far more beautiful than any hologram could convey?" Heat rushed to Zara's cheeks. She had been warned that Vorthakians were direct in their communication, but she had not expected such personal comments during formal proceedings. "Thank you, Your Highness. You are quite different from what I expected as well." "Different how?" Kale leaned closer, and Zara caught a scent that reminded her of moonflowers and starlight. "More human than I anticipated," she admitted honestly. "More approachable." Kale smiled, revealing teeth that gleamed like pearls. "Perhaps because I find myself drawn to humanity in ways that surprise even me. Especially to one particular human." The first day of negotiations passed in a blur of trade agreements and territorial discussions, but Zara found herself increasingly distracted by the alien prince beside her. Every time their hands accidentally touched while reviewing documents, she felt electricity shoot through her body. When he leaned close to whisper clarifications, his breath on her neck made her pulse race. As evening approached, Kale suggested they continue their discussions over dinner in his private quarters. Against all protocol, Zara found herself accepting. His chambers were a wonder of alien technology and art, with walls that displayed real-time views of nebulae and star clusters. Soft music played from hidden speakers, melodies that seemed to resonate with something deep in her soul. "This is incredible," Zara breathed, turning slowly to take in the beauty surrounding them. "It pales in comparison to the view I have been enjoying all day," Kale said softly. Zara turned to find him watching her with an intensity that made her knees weak. "Your Highness, I should remind you that I am here as Earth's representative, and I am here as the Crown Prince of Vorthak," Kale replied, stepping closer. "But in this moment, we are simply two beings who have found something unexpected in each other." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently cupped her face in his hands. His skin was warm and surprisingly soft, with that subtle glow that seemed to respond to his emotions. "From the moment you entered that chamber today, I felt something I have never experienced before," Kale whispered. "My people have a saying that when souls recognize each other across the void, the universe itself celebrates." Zara's heart pounded as she looked into his violet eyes. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I believe destiny brought you to me, Zara Chen, and I am hoping that you feel even a fraction of what is burning in my heart right now." Before she could respond, Kale leaned down and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative and sweet, but when Zara responded by wrapping her arms around his neck, something ignited between them. The kiss deepened, becoming passionate and desperate, as if they were trying to communicate everything they could not say with words. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Kale rested his forehead against hers, his hands still framing her face. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered against her lips, not as a diplomat or a prince, but as two souls who have found each other among the stars. Zara knew she should say no. She knew this could complicate everything, potentially destroying the alliance before it even began. But as she looked into Kale's eyes, and saw the same longing and wonder that filled her own heart, she found herself nodding. "Yes," she whispered back. "Yes, I will stay." As Kale swept her into his arms, carrying her toward his sleeping chamber, Zara realized that her life had just changed forever. Whatever happened with the negotiations, whatever challenges they would face, she knew that she had found something precious and rare in the vast darkness of space. She had found love where she least expected it, with a being from another world who somehow understood her heart better than anyone from her own species ever had. The soft morning light of 3 different suns filtered through the crystalline walls as Zara woke in Kale's arms. For a moment, she simply lay still, marveling at how perfectly she fit against his larger frame. How natural it felt to be held by someone whose very DNA was different from her own. Kale stirred beside her, his violet eyes opening to meet hers immediately, as if he had been waiting for her to wake. "Good morning, my starlight," he murmured, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Good morning," Zara replied, her heart fluttering at the endearment. "I should probably return to my quarters before anyone notices I'm missing." Kale's expression grew serious. "Are you having regrets about last night?" Zara shook her head quickly. "No regrets. But we both know this complicates everything. If the other diplomats knew about us, it could jeopardize the entire alliance. Then we will be careful," Kale said, his hand tracing gentle patterns on her bare shoulder. "But I will not pretend that what happened between us meant nothing. You have awakened something in me that I thought was lost forever." As they prepared for another day of negotiations, Zara learned more about the man behind the royal title. Kale told her about his childhood on Vorthok Prime, about the weight of expectations that came with being the heir to a galactic empire, about the loneliness of a life where every relationship was political rather than personal. "I had begun to believe that love was a luxury I would never be able to afford," he admitted, as they made their way to the conference chamber. "My marriage will be arranged for political alliance, my children will be raised by tutors and advisors, and my heart will remain untouched by true connection. And now?" Zara asked softly. "Now, I have tasted what it means to be truly alive," Kale replied, stopping to face her in the empty corridor. "Now know what I will be giving up, and the knowledge is both a gift and a torment." The second day of negotiations proved more challenging than the first. Ambassador Torres from Earth had arrived overnight, bringing with him a team of advisors who viewed every Vorthakian gesture with suspicion. On the alien side, Kale's father, Emperor Vorthok, had sent his military commander, General Dex, to oversee the proceedings. Zara found herself caught between competing interests, trying to balance her growing feelings for Kale with her duty to humanity. Every glance they shared was scrutinized, every moment of agreement viewed as potential weakness by the hardliners on both sides. During a break in the proceedings, Ambassador Torres pulled Zara aside. "Commander, I need to speak with you about your conduct with the alien prince," he said sternly. "Several of my advisors have noticed what they describe as inappropriate familiarity between you two." Zara's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. "I'm simply following protocol for diplomatic relations, Ambassador. Building trust and rapport is essential for successful negotiations." "Building rapport is one thing," Torres replied. "What you're doing looks dangerously close to personal involvement. I don't need to remind you what's at stake here, or what would happen to your career if you let personal feelings compromise humanity's interests." That evening, Zara found herself torn between her duty and her heart. When Kale invited her to join him for dinner again, she almost declined. But the longing in his violet eyes, the gentle way he had touched her hand during the negotiations, made it impossible to stay away. They met in secret this time, in a hidden garden area of the station, where exotic plants from a dozen different worlds created a private oasis among the stars. "You seem troubled, my love," Kale observed, as they walked among the flowering trees. "Torres suspects something," Zara admitted. "And I imagine your people are equally observant." Kale nodded gravely. "General Dex warned me today that I am displaying too much favor toward the human delegation. He reminded me that the Empire's interests must come before personal desires." They sat together on a bench beneath a tree whose blossoms glowed with their own inner light. The beauty of their surroundings seemed to mock the impossibility of their situation. "Perhaps we should end this now," Zara said quietly, her heart breaking even as she spoke the words, "before it becomes something that destroys everything we're trying to build between our peoples." Kale turned to her with fierce intensity. "Is that what you want? To pretend that what we have found together means nothing? What I want and what I should do are two different things," Zara replied, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. Kale reached for her hands, holding them gently in his own. "My people have a concept called soul binding. It is said that some beings are created as two halves of the same whole, destined to find each other across time and space. When they meet, their souls recognize each other instantly, like what happened to us," Zara whispered. "Exactly like what happened to us," Kale confirmed. "The moment I saw you, I knew. Every cell in my body, every thought in my mind, recognized you as the missing piece of my soul." Zara felt tears streaming down her cheeks. "But even if that's true, even if we are soulbound or destined, or whatever you want to call it, we still come from different worlds. We still have responsibilities that are bigger than our personal happiness." Kale leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. "Then we will find a way to make those responsibilities work in our favor. We will show both our peoples that love can be the strongest foundation for any alliance. And if we fail, if our feelings destroy the negotiations and prevent the alliance, then we will face the consequences together," Kale said firmly. "Because a universe where we have to choose between love and duty is a universe that needs to be changed." As they kissed beneath the alien stars, Zara felt her resolve wavering. Every logical part of her mind screamed that this was dangerous, that she was risking not just her career, but potentially the future of humanity itself. But her heart whispered something different. Her heart told her that some things were worth any risk, and that the love burning between her and this extraordinary alien prince might just be powerful enough to bridge the gap between their worlds. When they finally parted that night, Kale took her hands one more time. "Tomorrow, I will speak to my father," he declared. "I will tell him that I wish to formalize a personal bond with you as part of the alliance agreement." Zara's eyes widened. "Kale, that's incredibly dangerous. If he refuses, if he sees it as betrayal, then I will face whatever comes," Kale replied. "Because I have found my soulmate among the stars, and I will not let politics tear us apart." As Zara returned to her quarters that night, she knew that tomorrow would change everything. One way or another, they would discover whether love could truly conquer the vast distances between worlds. The final day of negotiations began with tensions so thick it could be cut with a blade. Word had somehow leaked that Prince Kale planned to make an unprecedented announcement, and representatives from both species filled the chamber with nervous energy. Zara sat at the human delegation table, her hands clasped tightly in her lap to stop them from shaking. Across the room, Kale stood beside his father, Emperor Vorthik, whose ancient eyes seemed to bore into her soul. Ambassador Torres leaned close to Zara's ear. "Whatever the prince is planning, remember where your loyalties lie, Commander." Before Zara could respond, Emperor Vorthik rose to address the assembly. His voice carried the authority of someone who had ruled a galactic empire for over 3 centuries. "Honored delegates, before we conclude these historic negotiations, my son has requested permission to address both delegations on a matter of personal significance." General Deck stepped forward, his expression thunderous. "Your Majesty, I must protest." Personal matters have no place in diplomatic proceedings. On the contrary, Emperor Vorthok replied, his gaze never leaving Zara's face. Sometimes personal matters become the foundation upon which entire civilizations are built. Kale moved to the center of the chamber, his violet eyes finding Zara's immediately. In that moment, she saw not the crown prince of a galactic empire, but the man who had held her in his arms and whispered words of love among the stars. Honored delegates from Earth and Vorthok, Kale began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 3 days ago, I entered these negotiations believing that alliances were built solely on trade agreements and mutual benefit. I have learned something far more important. He paused, his eyes never leaving Zara's face. I have learned that the strongest bonds between peoples are not forged in conference rooms, but in the connections between individual hearts. Ambassador Torres started to rise, but Emperor Vorthok gestured for him to remain seated. Continue, my son, the Emperor said quietly. I stand before you today to announce that I have found my soulbound mate, Kale declared, and the chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Commander Zara Chen of Earth has become the other half of my soul, and I formally request permission to make her my consort and future empress. The silence that followed was deafening. Zara felt every eye in the room turning to her, felt the weight of two civilizations' futures pressing down on her shoulders. General Vex exploded from his seat. This is an outrage. The Crown Prince cannot bind himself to an alien. The genetic implications alone, Emperor Vorthok interrupted calmly, are actually quite favorable. Our scientists have been studying human DNA since first contact. Vorthakians and humans are remarkably compatible. In fact, hybrid offspring would likely possess the best traits of both species. Ambassador Torres found his voice. Even if that's true, Your Majesty, this puts us in an impossible position. Commander Chen is a military officer with duties to Earth. Then perhaps, the Emperor continued, it is time to discuss a new kind of alliance. One sealed not just with signatures, but with the bonds of family. Zara stood slowly, feeling as if she were moving through a dream. Every protocol, every rule of military conduct, every logical reason she could think of, told her to refuse. But as she looked at Kale, saw the love and hope burning in his violet eyes, she felt her heart make the choice that her mind could not. Your Majesty, she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. If Prince Kale will have me, and if both our peoples can accept this union, then I accept his proposal. The chamber exploded again, with delegates from both sides arguing furiously. But Zara heard none of it. She was moving toward Kale, drawn by a force stronger than gravity, and when he met her halfway and swept her into his arms, the rest of the universe faded away. Are you certain? He whispered against her ear as he held her close. Once we do this, there is no going back. I've never been more certain of anything in my life, Zara replied, pulling back to look into his eyes. Forever mine? Forever yours, Kale confirmed, then kissed her deeply, sealing their bond before representatives of two worlds. When they finally broke apart, Emperor Vorthok was addressing the assembly. Let it be recorded that on this day, the Terran-Vorthakian alliance was not merely signed, but sealed with the most sacred bond our species recognizes. My son and his chosen mate will rule together, bridging our worlds with their love. Ambassador Torres approached Zara, his expression unreadable. Commander, I hope you understand what you're doing. I understand that sometimes the most important decisions can't be made with logic alone, Zara replied. Sometimes you have to trust your heart. The ceremony took place that very evening, with representatives from both worlds witnessing the union of beings from different species, different worlds, different cultures, brought together by a love that transcended every boundary. Zara wore a gown that seemed to be woven from starlight itself, a gift from the Empress, that incorporated both human and Vorthakian design elements. Kale wore traditional Vorthakian marriage robes that had been in his family for generations, but he had added a human element, wedding rings crafted from metals found on both their worlds. As they exchanged vows beneath the canopy of stars visible through the station's crystal dome, Zara felt the presence of destiny itself blessing their union. I take you not just as my mate, but as my partner in building a future where love knows no boundaries, Kale vowed, slipping the ring onto her finger. I take you as my husband, my prince, and my heart's true home among the stars, Zara replied, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. When the ceremony concluded and they were officially bonded according to the laws of both their worlds, Kale swept Zara into his arms for the traditional dance of newly bonded mates. So, my empress, he murmured, as they swayed to music that blended earth and Vorthakian melodies. Are you ready for our real adventure to begin? What could be more adventurous than marrying an alien prince I met 3 days ago? Zara laughed. Ruling a galactic empire together while raising hybrid children who will be the bridge between our species, Kale replied with a grin. When you put it that way, it does sound rather exciting, Zara admitted, then grew serious. Do you really think this will work? Two beings from different worlds? Kale stopped dancing and cupped her face in his hands. My love, we have already proven that love can transcend species, culture, and distance. Everything else is just details, as their wedding celebration continued around them, with humans and Vorthakians mingling and laughing together for the first time in galactic history. Zara knew that their love story was just beginning. They had found each other across the vast darkness of space, two souls that recognized each other instantly, despite every difference between them. Their marriage would not just unite two beings in love, but two civilizations in peace. And as Kale whispered, "Forever mine," against her lips during their final dance as newlyweds, Zara knew that some promises were worth keeping across lifetimes, across worlds, and across the infinite expanse of the stars themselves. Their love had already changed the course of galactic history. Now, together, they would write the next chapter of that story with their children, their peoples, and the unbreakable bond that had brought them together on that first magical night among the stars.